Hey, welcome back to the National Defense. It's Randy Miller, and you saw the event for Memorial Day that just happened with CBS and Steve Hartman, who's been a guest on this program. But what an incredible display and tribute to every soldier, to every sailor, to every corpsman, to every branch of service. And it all started with an organization called TAPS for Veterans. Co-founder Jari Villanueva is on with us here on the National Defense. Jari, how are you?
Very well. Thank you for having me, Randy.
Hey, this is so cool. That was such a cool event. Steve Hartman, and for the people that may not have seen it, let's kind of go back through that a little bit. So Steve Hartman from CBS gave you a call, right?
Absolutely. Well, actually, it started before Steve called. Back at the beginning of May, I had the idea of having a program. TAPS for Veterans has done several programs like this before. Our last one was back in November of 2018, where we had buglers actually all over the world that sounded taps and last post for the end of World War I. So
wow.
As May came upon us, I was thinking it would be really terrific to have buglers once again sound a TAPS call, because there would be no ceremonies. As May went on, I noticed in the news, one after another, Memorial Day canceled, Memorial Day service was canceled. So I thought it would be wonderful to have buglers sounding our national song of remembrance at 3 p.m. on Memorial Day during the national moment of remembrance. And so we got started, and we had like 100, 200 people started signing up, and then Steve called.
The thing about Steve Hartman is the fact that I can't even talk to the guy without crying. I mean, anything he does, he brings you to tears.
He's such a wonderful fella, and really puts all his energy and thoughts and emotions into the stories that he covers.
Yes.
And he said, listen, Jari, I see, you're the TAPS guy in the United States. You're the foremost authority on bugling. I have this idea about getting buglers all over the United States to play TAPS on Memorial Day. His original thought was to do it at 7 p.m. And I shot right back at him and say, hey, Steve, we're already one step ahead of you. We've already been registering people to sound the call at 3 p.m. And he goes, oh my goodness, that's perfect. And he says, so you got this, the registration thing happening. Yep. We've got social media happening. He says, well, we need to partner up. We need to make, CBS part of this too. And I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what he decided to do, and the great producer, Roxanne, was to work out an interview with him so that it would be broadcast nationwide on Friday evening, then redone on the Sunday morning program, talking about the TAPS across America, which they decided to call it. And I was, more than happy with that.
Right.
Because interestingly enough, I have the website, TAPS Across America also, and we have the Facebook page, TAPS Across America, which was originally set up to do events where we would incorporate having buglers all over the country perform. And one of my goals that I hope to do before I pass one of my bucket lists is to actually travel around the United States and play in each national cemetery.
Oh, wow.
Sound TAPS. And that's never been done. There's never been done by a bugler who's gone into each one. And there's 144 of them in the United States. So that's a project.
That's a great goal. We're talking to Jari Villanueva here on the National Defense, and the founder, one of the co-founders of TAPS for Veterans. And before we get into the numbers of Memorial Day, Jari, how did you come up with this organization, and how long have you had it going?
We've been going since 2012. The very first thing we did, and this came out of the TAPS 150 commemoration, which was the 150th anniversary of the bugle call of TAPS. We had a large ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery and also down at Berkeley Plantation, where the call was born 150 years before. I had also worked at other events. One of my biggest things I like to look back on my career is we had a special exhibit at Arlington National Cemetery from 1999 to 2003 about bugling and buglers. I served in the United States Air Force Band between 1985 and 2008. And of course, part of my job was sounding taps at Arlington National Cemetery. So,
Sure.
you know, the idea when I retired and seeing that, you know, it's very tough to get a live bugler at military funerals because of the cutbacks in the military
Right.
music.
Yeah, and that's been a problem here for a little bit, and it's just the recording is nice, but not the same.
Exactly. And I'll be very upfront about this and very candid. I think the recording, the digital bugle, is important to have because there are just places where you cannot find a live bugler.
Right.
However, and that's the big however, it should never replace a live person. And
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Totally.
yeah, unfortunately, our military and some of our beloved VSOs have decided that they'll use the digital bugle even if a live player shows up.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
just
kind of-
just not the same. And I think that you proved that this past Memorial Day with the taps across America, because that was one of the most moving things. We've been doing this show now for almost 15 years, and I got to tell you, that was one of the most moving things that I have ever seen. And I think everybody felt that. You know, it's just that that solitary sound coming out just absolutely grips people, and you saw that all across the country, didn't you?
Absolutely. And you know, the one thing about this is that this wasn't done for crowds. It wasn't done as part of large ceremonies. It was specifically done for the neighbors. We encouraged all these players to play on your front porch, on your balcony, on your driveway, or go to a location where there's a monument or cemetery. The idea was to, you know, just keep it, in the age of social distancing,
Right.
keep it small. And you know what? People responded. We had over 4,000 that registered, but certainly I think close, maybe 10,000 people
I'll
all
bet.
across the United States.
There was one guy on his horse.
Yes, I saw that. and interestingly enough, and I got the question about this quite a bit, I would like to be involved, but, you know, I play flute or clarinet or saxophone. And I thought, why should we stop these people from honoring our veterans?
Right.
And if somebody wanted to play it on the trombone or French horn or tuba, which we've had, or harmonica, it was more than appropriate in this type of setting. Now, at a military funeral, you know, having a bugler, a solo bugler sound the call, that is reserved, you know,
Right.
especially for that. But in something like this is America's call. This is the call that people remember hearing at summer camp, or when they were in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Actually, the Girl Scouts sing it every meeting. They sing the words.
Really?
Yes, they sing "The Day Is Done, Gone the Sun." It's wonderful.
Wow.
And we have a video somewhere of these brownies singing it. It just tears your heart.
Oh, yeah.
And so the call, you know, in that context, has become part of our American culture, and it unifies us as Americans, because everyone who served in the military can tell you, yeah, I remember, you know, going to sleep and hearing that call.
Right.
And for many, especially in the military, it's important because when the call was sounded, it meant that things were safe and secure for the evening. And when taps is sounded, like at a ceremony or even in the community, it brings, you know, a moment of peace and assurance and a safety to us all.
And a comfort, especially in this time that we're going through. I just thought that was so appropriate, and it's the first time in a long time that that I think we've been unified, about something.
Absolutely. What a great word you use, comfort. It brings us comfort.
Yeah.
And you see that on people's faces after you finish the call.
Yeah.
And so playing it, having it played in neighborhoods, small gatherings, is what our nation is all about, because we're a nation that's built on neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
Community.
Yeah.
And what a magnificent way to show community sticking together.
Absolutely. We're talking to Jari Villanueva here on the National Defense and the organization TAPS for Veterans. And Jari, you told me you were just on your way to mail out 4,000 thank you notes.
Yes, we're printing them up. We're thanking everyone who was involved, who registered with a thank you letter. It's a form letter, but my hand's going to cramp up if I have to write each one.
Right.
And we're going to give them a patch too. We have a TAPS for Veterans patch that we're going to mail out with it. And one thing, TAPS for Veterans as an organization, the two people involved with it, myself and Mark Paredes. Mark and I are both actually military musicians. I'm retired from the Air Force Band. It's 23 years. Mark served in the United States Marine Corps as a trumpeter in one of the fleet bands. So we have a certain perspective on all this, in that we understand what TAPS is and how important it is. And we're blessed to have people who've been volunteering with us who are retired military, a lot of retired military musicians, and professionals, school teachers, amateurs, everyone who has the desire to try and help out by sounding TAPS.
Well, I think that this, and you guys alluded to it on the CBS News piece, but I really think this is something that could happen on an annual basis. What a perfect thing to just occur every single Memorial Day.
Like I told Steve Hartman, hey, I'm way ahead of you.
Yeah.
We're actually been talking. I've already reached out to some people I know and said, we're going to get together in about a month, and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk and map out plans for next year, because we want to make this even bigger event. Something that just had started almost by accident, but has taken off. We're going to try and make an annual event out of this.
That's great.
And next year is very important in the military life, because 2021 marks the 100th anniversary of the first burial of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery.
Wow.
So there's a great tie-in there. And I'm a member of the Society of the Sentinel of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I'm an associate member, and I've been in touch with the president of that the organization, who's a retired sergeant major, and I'm part of the program that the tomb guards are presenting as they lead up to this big ceremony. Because, of course, being a bugler, my interest is in the buglers who sounded the call at each one of those major ceremonies. And not many people know their names, but after next year they will.
Oh, I love that. Have you ever heard of the six-string soldiers?
They're wonderful. I love them. They're right down the street from me.
Well, we just had them on the program not too long ago, and they would be a great addition to what you guys are doing. I'm sure that they would jump all over that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I will tell you and tell all your listeners that I have many friends in not only the Army Field Band, where the six-string folks are from, but also Pershing's Own, United States Army Band in Washington. Yeah. They actually recorded a couple things for Memorial Day. They recorded two things, an arrangement of TAPS that I did. It's on the U.S. Army Facebook page.
Oh, wow.
And you'll see it, TAPS arranged by Jari Villanueva. So I get a shout out from the U.S. Army.
That's pretty cool.
Even though I'm an Air Force guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really shocking.
And they also recorded an arrangement I did of Mansions of the Lord for trumpets, which they played at Arlington over the Memorial Day
Oh,
weekend.
wow.
And that's also on their site. So if anyone's interested in finding those videos, they're just gorgeous because they're incredible musicians.
Well,
I was so honored to be part of that cadre of great players during my time.
Well, obviously, thank you for your service, Jari. And Taps for Veterans, just, like you mentioned, it's just you two guys, and it's not going to run itself. I mean, to make this bigger and better every year, you need some help, obviously, from contributions. Where can people go to make those donations and to just keep this getting bigger and better every year?
Well, thank you. Yes, they can go to our website, which is tapsforveterans.org. O-R-G. So it's just one word, Taps for Veterans. We also have a Facebook page. They can find us easily there. Or they can go over to my website, tapsbugler.com. Now, tapsforveterans.org is the site, of course, where it talks about getting buglers lined up for ceremonies and things like that. Taps Bugler is all historical. Everything you wanted to know about taps and bugling, and it's a great site. So you can support either site. We use any of the donations there to pay for all the stamps. The stamps alone for $4,000.
Oh,
quite a bit.
Yeah, right. And the patch and the whole. I mean, it's just fantastic. My last question, Jari, is: do you have a brother that plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I get that question a lot.
We've had him on the show.
The turnaround should be someone should ask him, "Are you related to Jari Villanueva?"
I'm sure they have. Oh, that's funny.
He's actually we're not related. Villanueva is a common name, like Smith or Jones, but he's a player who I admire because I remember I watched him on that game where all the other players stayed in the locker room during the national anthem.
Yep.
He walked out,
just like a West Point graduate would.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm a Air Force guy, but if I hear To the Color or to the anthem or taps, you'll see me rise to my feet so fast it'll make your head spin.
Well, Jari, listen, man, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thank you for what you and Steve Hartman put together, and we'll just look for it bigger and better next year. Tapsforveterans.org is the place to go. Jari, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back here on the National Defense.